Welcome to this podcast, Mission GJ. At this time, we have Apostle Erickson Salazar and leader Henry Morel. How good we are here, flowing in the prophetic for the house. That's right. Leader Henry, how are you? Excellent.
Así es, líder Henry, ¿cómo está?
And we are happy to have you here in the booth, sharing everything that represents the different experiences in the mission. So let us know one of the experiences of the many that you've had. One of the ones that has impacted you the most. Let us know. Well, thank you for the opportunity, first of all. Speaking of experiences, there are many that I don't think I'll have enough time to share. But I'm going to go back to the beginning because there's an experience that impacted me a lot, and I would like to focus on that one. When I was giving my first steps in the ministry, I remember just like today that I came like a rocket to the ministry, wanting to do everything. And literally, they started allowing me to do a lot of things. Because this is a ministry that knows how to take advantage of every percentage the person wants to give, whether it's 10, whether it's 20, 30, but we're going to take it. And that's how I came. I came giving a percentage, but there was a problem. That the percentage I was giving was mixed with trickery. Because I was always giving my opinion and wanting to do everything, but like a fanatic, but never a player. And I remember that every idea I used to give, it would turn into something that I had to do, like work. It would turn into work, literally. For example, I gave ideas regarding music. And I ended up working in the music ministry, playing the drums and different instruments. I also worked in the youth ministry consolidation and also in the service ministry with children's ministry, in the parking lot. So literally I went through every ministry. I was being taken, I was being guided and led, but I never had leadership over anything. I was working low profile. I would say, I work, but don't bother me too much. And it's because sometimes we get comfortable and we do things as we want and with no commitment. One of the many opinions I would share as an outsider, never as an insider, I never would do any of them. I would never complete any of them. But that was part of my experience. Now I'm going to share the experience that truly impacted me. That was just like a pre-intro. One time I remember, like today, that there was a person guiding, in charge of the technical part. They recorded the services, they were transmitting, in charge of audio. I don't know if it was Pastor Alex. But since he had a lot of things, he needed somebody to take charge of the multimedia ministry. That person needed to structure themselves, and they needed more people. So one Sunday I was relaxed. After a prophetic dial, Apostle calls me to his office. I thought it was, to congratulate me because I did a good job playing the music. But what I did not know was that the reason for the meeting was to put me as head of the multimedia ministry, which required a whole lot of responsibility, and I didn't have any. When that man calls me to the office and came up to me with that, he said, look, I want you to be here. I laughed. And I say, within me, I say, you must have issues. But he believed in me. And I said, okay, let's do it. And in reality, I moved forward because I did not believe, but because he believed for me. Because that's how Apostle is. He believes in everybody at the end, even if they kick and scream. To not make the story any longer, we went forward. I took my first steps. I supported myself on what he said, and that's how everything started. I began to develop in the ministry of multimedia. Automatically, everything was falling into place. I developed a potential that I didn't know I had in terms of technology, technical things, poking around and learning things that I never knew I would do, like transmitting on Facebook Live. At that time, Facebook announced that they were going to do live, but it was limited. But I was always digging and digging and digging until finally we were able to do it from the DR. And we started innovating. We couldn't transmit from YouTube or anything like that, only Facebook. But I remember we used to mount the phone on a tripod, and it was broken, but we fixed it and we taped it up and we used it. I remember this experience was so strong that instead of the tripod, we even used a person in its place, standing up and holding the phone. A person standing with a cell phone in their hand. During the length of the service, the whole point was to get it done. And then the technological advancements allowed us to transmit through the PC, through the computer, then a web camera. Then we got a professional camera. And like that, everything was developed. And that potential and that talent that was hidden was developed. And that only here in Generation Joshua was brought out. And now you know. That was a very powerful experience for me. Lewis says, I'm impacted by that experience. And Apostle says, in the way that he narrates, everything is explained. Because look how he says that he had gone through many ministries. And Lewis says, I feel like I went through that with him. He said it, and you come from the multimedia ministry as well, Lewis. So he explained everything, and it's interesting that you share this because that's the format of the house. It is designed in that way so that everyone can be exposed in different areas. And look at all the areas that he mentions, even parking lot. But look how he talks about how he didn't want to have responsibilities. He didn't want to face anything. He wanted to be on the sidelines. And there are people that want to be on the sidelines and not be bothered. Don't bother me. I help you in this, but don't bother me. And there's something that I want people to understand. At the end of it all, I want you to know that the only thing that has weight before God is the ministry. And when I say the ministry, you say, what about your family? Yeah, your family is part of the ministry. But it's not for you to administer it the way you want. Even for that, there are prerequisites and there are principles that you have to know how to apply in order to know how to handle them. And here, nobody will learn to handle their family, their business, their work, or wherever they're sent if they don't allow themselves to be trained by the ministry. Because who teaches you formation of life, not only in the spiritual, also in the human, which is the ministry. The ministry forms you so much that makes a man and a woman out of you. Totally, Lewis says. I experienced that, Lewis says, because he's saying how he went through so many ministries. He said how he was also exposed to be leader of a ministry. He's saying how he developed and how he got on top of this structure because something strong happens. The ministry exposes things, exposes people in areas that then they end up being experts in those areas. And then today they end up sustaining their families, earning money as product of that sending from the ministry. And the great majority has done that. Many have been exposed in areas that have nothing to do with their profession, and now they're living off of that. So something interesting about how we have to allow ourselves to be exposed and sent by the ministry. I'm saying the benefits that if you don't go through that, you won't be prepared for life itself. So everything at the end need to have that, or have that attitude at the beginning. Like, I'll do this to this point, or I'm too busy. People, listen, people don't stop understanding that the ministry that today we belong to, or the ministry that anyone belongs to, is the ministry of Christ. You are a colleague of Christ. It's not that anyone sent you. It sounds good. Oh, apostle sent me, the pastor, whatever. That has nothing, that has no relevancy. But I am a collaborator. I'm a colleague with Christ. Wow, Lewis says, what a way of visualizing it. Apostle says, because at the end, you might want to tell everybody one by one, but people, that's why we have this platform of communication to share so many things, because we have so much to say. But if you notice, the ministry also doesn't expose just by chance. See, when people give you their pedigree of every place they've been and everything they've learned, when they were exposed, they were already proved. They were tested, they were corrected, they were educated, they were refocused, and everything. By the time you expose them, you know by the Spirit that that's the person. And listen to what he says. This happened, and we innovated this, and we did that. Did you ever know that he was going to be able to innovate? You understand? The Holy Spirit doesn't make mistakes. And he's sharing basic stories from the ministry when we begin to transmit, online. One day, he was exposed, and look how his spirit was awakened to begin to dig and find out information and find ways. And doing the things that were coming very well timed for the structuring and expansion of the ministry, because the ministry, until recently, we were focused 100% the people of the house. And when you hear us say for the house, flowing in the prophetic for the house, you know what that means? It means that we are only speaking to the members of the ministry. If you are not a member of the ministry, you can listen. Of course you can listen. But those from the house are the ones that understand the dynamic of what we're doing. If you understand, welcome. Great. You're welcome. Okay? But those from the house, within the legal right, it corresponds to us to give them the nourishment. And if there's one thing that is special about this ministry from day zero, is that the nourishment for the children never goes missing. In this ministry, we give the children prophetic tea, breakfast, lunch, snack, and dinner. And appetizers, 1 or 2 appetizers. Because, do you know why you are so well nourished in this place? It's not because we want you to be nice and robust. No, my friend. Sorry if that's what you thought. You are being prepared for the Great Commission of salvation. You are being prepared because you will be sent. The apostolic ministry means the ministry of those that are sent. The ministry that will fulfill what Christ one day did. So we are not making things up. We are following through with what one day God began. That which one day the master, took a group aside, prepared them, and then sent them. And he went to prepare a house for us, to wait for us there. See how interesting. So the ministry is like Noah's Ark. Is where we're bringing lives in, so they're not lost, and more so in these final times. But this ark, there are many behind that ark preparing, constructing it, many people that were formed to be able to be part of the work, to be part of the prophetic work. So, what I like is that Henry was narrating, and I love your presentation, Henry, because he said, this is what I was doing, but I was always kind of, low profile. And like he was saying, which is very important, it's not the one I like the most, but the one I enjoy the most when I have to confront. And it's the people that want to give a whole lot of opinions. Many opinions, many opinions. And I say, okay, we're going to take it into account. Yeah, but look at this and look at that. And you're like, yeah, okay. And what they don't know is that, yes, within our demand, within the many deficiencies we see, but for you it's easy to point something out to be corrected, but what you don't know is that you could take up to a year to fix one area. But we don't work with the help of anyone, we structure the areas. It's not receive the help or a favor from someone, but there's a structure. Lewis says it does seem easy. It seems easy from the outside, but when you get within, you start to see things that you never considered. Apostle says, of course. And more so in our case, that we could put this table here, but behind this table here, there's a multitude of people in order for us to be able to sit here. But anyone might think, okay, just, get a camera and start talking. There's a whole bunch of human resources behind this just for two people to sit here talking. So you have more than 20 people behind for two to sit down. And you say, oh, I thought it was just turning on the camera. No, it's because we're not influencers. We're not seeking views. We are prophets that are working with lives. And in this case, with those from the house. Because those from the house nourish themselves and they're formed because we need more workers, because the work is great and the workers are few. The prophets, the evangelists, the teachers, the pastors are few. That's it. So the ministry is the cradle that prepares and forms. And like we've always said, the demand creates a strategy. It's valid, like Henry said. He liked to give opinions and watching from afar. Okay. Now, can you ask Henry if he has since then given an opinion or said something to fix? Never again. And many here don't do that. Do you know why? Because everyone who has an opinion, I say, oh, you have an opinion? Okay, go ahead, do it. I used to love those trainings because those are labs. You are giving your opinion on this? Okay, so you are going to be placed here so that you understand the apostolic vision of what's being done here. Of course, Apostle says. And people think it's as simple as, oh, why don't we put that a little bit, why don't we move that ahead? And that seems simple, but they don't understand that needs a structure. So I am slow in preparation. It's not really slow, but it's that I'm methodical, so everything goes in its place. So that cup or that chair is moved perfectly and without error. So what do? I make the structural plan. It's not simply let's move it today and then the next day it's not done right. No. If there's something that we do as a ministry, it's consistency. But there's also something interesting that we don't boast. We're not precipitated because the stereotypes do it like that. We're not overwhelmed because we want to do it like others. No. We come, like Henry says, from using a cell phone with a tripod that was falling from zero, and to be able to, to set equipment up and mount things on top of other things, to be able to transmit service on Sunday so that the international or remote members could connect to the prophetic dial. And we went through every day doing things with what we had at hand and not pretending. And I say not pretending because maybe we could have purchased the equipment. But no, more than equipment, we wanted to have human resources. And that human resource, we taught them to operate with what they had at hand. We taught them first what discipline was, consistency, what it was to be creative, what it meant to be productive. And that awakened two, then it awakened two, then three, and years passed by, and then four, and then others would pretend or boast. Others would only just talk, but they wouldn't execute anything. And that always had me, at the point where I never liberated or let things go. I had to wait for the Spirit to guide us. Why? Because in God, there's a lot of order. There's order in everything of when things are released. Louis says in this lab was like filtering those that were faithful in the little for this project. Well, Apostle says, if you see what he was saying, he said that he was put through different areas. It is a laboratory, like you said. But if he worked in parking, if he worked with youth and kids, you are moving him around, you're taking him. But he himself is not realizing that he's getting to know himself. Because I'm going to share something interesting with you about the ministry. If the ministry doesn't expose the members to serve, they're not going to experience the Spirit. Because the Spirit, you're going to see it reflected in the work of the ministry. I'm not exposing you. I'm exposing you for you to know the Holy Spirit. Because giving is how you receive. Of course. It's interesting, Louis says. It's like the old cars, you push them a little bit. You push them a little bit. And then the engine starts. Henry was an old car, rusty. And we were taking him, and then he was the leader of a ministry. But the apostolic was watching him. Because what people don't know is that the apostolic is watching you. You could be chilling in Japan or in Jupiter. You're being watched. You're being analyzed. There's an intercession from the Spirit over you. And you ask the Spirit, okay, tell me about so-and-so. And you ask and you see the reports and you see, and you evaluate and you see what are they commenting, what are they learning. And then you see the maturity of the person. You see if the person has their spirit awakened, if it's not awakened, if what they're doing is operating in their soul or ego, if they're pretending, if they're submitting, if they're subject to authority, if they're not, if they understand the vision of the house or if they don't, if they're rebellious, if not. I could tell you in detail each life how they operate. And it's because everyone manifests what it's in their heart. And that's biblical. So Henry, that was a guy that instead of being here, you had to put him in jail. You understand? You laugh, but it's serious. Of course, Apostle says. But like I was saying, in one of the archives, or actually a podcast we had, a podcast, The Temple of the Holy Spirit. When I was talking about the Temple of the Holy Spirit, I was sharing the characteristics of a temple. And one of them was to love your enemies. And I loved Henry. And instead, an apostle says, Henry says, and I was saying that you believed for me. I did not believe in that, but you believed for me. And even to this day, he's still believing. I got to clarify something. He didn't believe in himself. And the people that were around him, that were his friends, didn't believe in him either. Nobody believed. And everybody was like, are you sure what you're doing? And I'm always watching the child of God. I'm not watching anything else. And I don't do it because they're good. It's because he sees us like that. Tell me, Henry. Apostle, you know that I remember that you exposed me also in many meetings with people that handle a lot of technology, and you would introduce me and you would say this is the multimedia leader,
Sí,
and I
no,
would be like, oh my gosh, is he talking about
muestra el
me?
fuegueo y lo
Yeah,
demuestra
we expose them and
para
we
que vean que tiene ese
throw
peso,
them there
responsabilidad
so that they can
y
understand
sepan
the
que es en
weight and the
serio que lo dice.
responsibility, and they know that
¿Entiendes?
it's
Eso mismo
serious.
como cuando llevo un grupo a Las Vegas.
That
Le
happened
digo,
like when I took a group to Las Vegas, Nevada,
estamos aquí, sí, aquí que estamos,
and
prepárense
we
que
were there,
estando allá
and
no,
I was like, get
es
prepared
que
so that
imagínate,
you can fight.
en el caso de uno, por ejemplo,
Imagine
que vengo de
in our
eventos,
in our case, in my case, that I come from putting together
estar
events
ya tiempo
before
completo el ritmo,
being full time in the
estado en
ministry,
muchos eventos
and
internacionales.
I've been in many international events.
Uno se lleva lo de uno es para que vengan a ver,
We
pero es
take
para que vengan a ver lo
hours
que vamos a hacer.
to places so that they can see what
Y
we're
eso
gonna do.
pasa cuando tú expones vida,
And that
entregas,
happens when you expose
tales,
lives in many
talento
ministry.
o talento.
You know,
Hay personas
put this
que
one here and put
tú
that
no
one
has
there.
podido moverlo
There are
por
people that you
disciplina,
haven't been
que
able
han
to
sido
move to other
efectivos
ministries because they
dentro de
haven't
lo
been
que tú
effective
retrasaste.
within what
Hay
you
gente
have
que no,
given them.
y
They took
realmente
another
no
path,
asumieron
and they never
la
assumed
dirección y la directriz
the
apostólica.
direction and
Y en este
the
caso,
the
porque al
apostolic
final
leadership,
no
and
se
you just leave
trata
them there because at the end I
de
don't
ser
let
el
anyone
más
go.
malo que te
You
tengo
could
ahí,
be the
no,
worst, but I leave you
tengo gente
there,
gastándose,
normal.
pero es hasta
I
que
have people
suelten el hijo.
getting burned out until the
Porque
sun is
aquí
released, because there are people that think that because they have
inteligencia
a little
que
bit of
está preparado
intelligence,
y no es
they
así.
think they're prepared, and it's not
Bregar
like
con
that.
demonios no es un juego.
Dealing with
Y
demons
cuando
is not a
usted
joke.
va a
It's
servir,
not a game.
lo primero
And
que se
when you're
enfrenta
going to
son
serve,
las
the first
marcas
thing you
que se van a
encounter
salir del
is the
pueblo.
marks that are going to
Así
turn
que esto no
against
es
you.
sacrificio, porque
So this is
vienen
not
muchos
sacrifice,
espíritus,
because many
y eso
spirits
lo decíamos no sé cuánto el
come.
otro día sobre que hay que pesar
And
los
I was
espíritus.
saying that the other day that
Hay
you have to
muchos
weigh the
espíritus que vienen
spirits.
camuflados en
And there are
sacrificio,
many spirits that come
y lo
camouflaged with
apostólico no tiene
sacrifice.
sacrificio.
And the apostolic
El
doesn't
apostólico coge
accept sacrifice.
100%
The
obediencia,
apostolic
y
receives
tan así,
obedience
es
100%.
persona
It is so that there are
que para
people
todo el mundo no
that
le sirve ni pechárselo, no te voy a decir qué.
they're not good for
Y tú
anything.
lo vas a creer,
Other people don't think
porque
they're
eso
good
es
for
efectivo.
anything. But for me, they're
Entonces,
effective.
esos son
With me,
los
they're effective.
secretos
So those are
apostólicos
some of
que
the apostolic secrets that are the best kept secrets.
eso veo, eso veo. Yo debería de hacer mi cosita de replay aparte.
I should make my own
Porque hay
replays, believe it or not,
que
because
no
there
son
are
buenos en
people
muchas cosas,
that
qué
are
sé
not
yo,
good
no
in many
tienen nombre ni
things,
imagen para muchos,
that maybe they
y
don't
para
have a
nosotros
good
vivimos 100%.
image in front of
¿Y tú
others,
sabes
but
por
for
qué?
me, they're 100% effective. And you know why?
Obediencia al
Because
mandato apostólico.
they obey the
Y
apostolic
por
mandate.
ahí, yo
And
no
that's
estoy
all I
pidiendo a
want.
ti que tú seas un ángel ni que bajes volando.
I'm not asking you to be
Yo
an
no estoy
angel and
pidiendo
fly
que tú
low.
tengas de ayuno, ni que tú
I'm not
seas el tipo
asking you to
más
have
santo.
to take 70 days of
Con la
fasting or to be the
obediencia
holiest person.
y que Jesucristo te
It's enough with obedience for me and make Christ pay you.
la mejor parte. Claro, porque al final hacemos
That's the
cosas para
best.
que conste, exacto. Sí,
Because obedience is the most important for me,
para él
for
todas
Him.
las cosas, totalmente.
And at the
El
end,
que no
it's
hace
for
las
Him
cosas
that we
para
do
el
things.
Padre,
Those that don't do things for the Father, they waste their
porque
time.
lo que tenemos
Because
es de
what we have is
lo
His.
que vamos a recibir es de
What we're going to receive
a
is
donde
His.
lo van a enviar es de
Where we're being taken
lo que voy a
is from
llevar
Him.
es de
What I'm going to bring is His. So surrender, my friend. Surrender.
todo
At
tiene
the
que ver con
end,
él.
everything
Entonces,
has to do with Him.
forcejeando con la autoridad.
So stop forcing with authority.
Déjese de estar forcejeando con lo
Stop
ministerial.
forcing with the ministerial.
Forcejeando con el
Stop
propósito de
forcing with the purpose of God in your life. And surrender. That's it.
Dios. Ríndase.
Surrender. You understand?
Nosotros,
Because we have to understand something.
creación está gimiendo,
Creation itself is
gimiendo por
crying,
los hijos.
crying for God's children.
Está haciendo el
And
coro de
you
creación.
are, coming along with creation when there's a creator that is about to send his son, and we are the alternative of this time. In a world where everything's a lie,
Va de mal en peor.
where everything's going from bad to worse.
El ministerio
So let the ministry,
fue el que constituyó
which
Cristo
was
para
the
que
one
se
that Christ
formara.
constituted for you to be formed,
Bien,
let him send you.
forcejeando con el ministerio.
Everyone that is
Todo el
forcing
que
with the
no se
ministry,
está dejando dirigir
everyone that's not
por ese
allowing
ministerio
themselves to
que
be
Cristo
guided
constituyó.
by this ministry that was constituted by Christ, you have issues.
Cristo le va a decir, "¿Qué hiciste?"
Christ is going to come and he's going to tell you, what did you do with what I told you? And you're going to say, what did you tell me, Lord? And what did the ministry tell you? I'm the one that constituted it, he's going to tell you. So then what? There are people, and that's why I love people that come blown up. People that think they're good for nothing. I love that. Because the Spirit doesn't need people to know, or intelligent people, or to have ranks or titles or anything. We don't care about that. We don't care. Remember that He calls those that are incapacitated so that He can prepare them. So take it easy. What you need is a calling, and the calling is for all those who obey. And it is time for us to allow ourselves to be exposed. Let yourself be exposed. We're not doing things by chance. Listen to the testimonies of these experiences in the mission. There are people that we are all totally impressed. These are great stories from the beginning. We should write a book. We should write a book about all this stuff. There's historic material here that there has been no error in completing the Great Commission of Salvation. A commission that is the only thing that was delegated by Christ. So when He comes, He will ask what we did with that Great Commission. He's going to ask, where's your fruit? Tell me, what did you do? That's why it's so important to be subject to authority in order to have authority. And that's what was shown in Harry. No matter that fact that he was twitching, he had something good. He obeyed. At least you found something good in there. And the great thing is that that's the only thing that's needed. Submission. Because we are a body. We are a body. And as a body, everyone plays a role. So let's enter into that puzzle and find ourselves in the position that corresponds to us. And that's it. And this whole thing about Henry reminds me of the podcast that was shared, The Principle of Principles. He submitted, and that authority manifested. So today, Henry is married with children. He's prosperous, he's stable. You understand? So to go from a dislocated man in every sense of the world, look where everything came from. Oh, he was structured. This is a structured leader with levels. So we have so many benefits when we obey the calling. That's why it is so important to understand that if we don't humble ourselves, then we're going to be broken. Now, we're always going to motivate you to humble yourself so that God Himself, personally, He can exalt you.
Gracias por sintonizar nuestro podcast Misión GJ. Nos vemos en un próximo episodio.